It is time to rock and roll you into the weekend. Yes, it's time for the Fortress of Rock with me, the Maestro, Kevin Crane. Glad to have you aboard. Episode 30, taping here Friday night, March the 11th, 2022. Of course, coming up in segment 2, our big review of the opening night of the Dreams in Gold Tour, Greta Van Fleet, Rival Sons, and the Velveteers from Kalamazoo, Michigan. Yes, the Maestro was there, so stay tuned for that. Coming up in our breakdown segment. But first, as always, we start off with news of the world. Our tribute to Freddie Mercury and Queen, of course. Not a lot to discuss in terms of rock news this week. The Black Keys, a band that I respect to a point. I admire to a point. They've announced a new album coming out May the 13th, Dropout Boogie. First single has just been released, Wild Child. The only thing I have a problem with when it comes to, I know the Black Keys are very proficient, energetic. They are diehard fans of old school rock and roll. Something about them has always rubbed me the wrong way, though. I don't know if it's because too many cover songs, not enough originality, not enough actually putting new stuff out there. And I know they've been around for a long time. Anytime they speak in the media, they come off like assholes. I'm sorry, but they do. They come off like really pretentious jerks who think they know more about music than everybody else. Again, as I said, they write on the coattails of other people's songs, other people's music stylings. I've never heard anything from the Black Keys that makes me believe they have any want, need, or desire to establish their own musical identity. And that's, we've seen that with other bands. People would go back as far as Led Zeppelin and say, look at all the influences that Led Zeppelin cribbed, that they stole from. So again, there's nothing wrong with it, but it just seems like the Black Keys are so defensive about it and so petty about it. God forbid you ever question them about, hey, why don't you do a lot more original stuff? And the fact that these guys will probably get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame someday because the critics just cream them left and right. They cream all over them. They just love them to death. Can't get enough of the Black Keys. I don't understand the appeal. Don't hate them. Just don't love them. Feel free to drop me a line and let me know what you think of the Black Keys. Again, proficient. Energy is there. But you just can't be a cover band, an homage band. You have got to come up with your own identity. And I don't ever think the Black Keys have done that. Of course, every week we look at tour news, which seems to be right now first and foremost in terms of what we're going to talk about. For those 80s hair metal fans like me, now these are two bands that I kind of back off from because the lead singers are either dead or gone. unfortunately. But of course, Janie Lane has been dead for 20 years. But Warrant still goes out there, and I saw them last year, and they were great. They still had the energy, still played well. Most of the original members are still in the band outside of Janie. Warrant is going out on tour with Skid Row. Now, again, this is a different animal to me because this is all about bickering and infighting. Of course, Sebastian Bach, I saw him last year, and he was great. Much, much better than previous times I'd seen him with and without Skid Row. This is one of those times where I will definitely say it is not Skid Row without Sebastian Bach. Would I see Skid Row and Warrant together right now in 2022? Maybe. Better be cheap tickets, though. Honestly, I'm not spending more than $30 to see these two because it's not the original bands. It's just not. ZZ Top is going back out on the road. Of course, Dusty Hill passed away recently. So now the original trio is down to two. A dear friend of mine who I go to see most of my concerts with basically told me when I brought up the notion, the idea of going to see ZZ Top here later this summer, said no. Without Dusty, it's not ZZ Top. I can't do it. And this is a guy who's a pretty big ZZ Top fan. I'm not that diehard. I probably would have gone to see them, but I get where he's coming from. And plus, the last time he and I got to go see them about 5 years ago, they put on, and this is the original Dusty, Frank, and Billy, the original trio, or the classic trio. I'm sure somebody out there will call me out and say, no, they started off as a bar band back in the late 60s. You don't get it. You don't understand who the original ZZ Top was. Okay, sorry. The classic trio. When we saw them, the show they put on was really good, but really short and not worth my time. Sorry, I'm not paying for an hour and 15 minutes. That's an insult to the fans. An hour and 15 minutes when you've got 4 decades of music to draw from, and you give us an hour and 15 minutes, that's an insult. I don't care how good Billy Gibbons was on guitar. I don't care if the set list was pretty good. You could have played another half an hour. No problem. You could have played another hour. No problem. So I'm a little jaded on ZZ Top. So I agree with my buddy. We'll pass on them this time around, especially now after Dusty Hill has passed away. And finally, you knew this was going to happen. We've seen it with The Who. We've seen it with many bands over the last 20 or 30 years. Thought I had seen Leonard Skinner 40 years ago on their farewell tour. I guess they've decided, well, we're not going to do a farewell tour now. We're just going to keep going out there. So, of course, Leonard Skinner has booked more dates for 2022. There have been health issues within the band, of course. they're not a Warrant. They're not a Skid Row where it's basically not really the band, but it's kind of not the band. Sorry, but it's not. It really isn't. And as much as I love Ricky Medlock, who has stepped in as one of the leaders now of Leonard Skinner, of course, Blackfoot. Blackfoot is out there. One of my prime sources for the Fortress of Rock is, of course, ultimateclassicrock.com. Had a story recently about bands who are still around where there are no original members in the band, and Blackfoot was one of them. I cannot believe Ricky Medlock is condoning this new version of Blackfoot. Of course, that was his band. Highway Song, Train, Train, two unbelievably great songs from the late 70s and early 80s. And of course, he got the invite to join Skynyrd. He jumped on that. And like I said, he is now at the forefront, one of the leaders of Leonard Skinner. So it's kind of like, to me, Sammy Hagar jumping in with Van Halen. He's not David Lee Roth, but he fits, and he's going to do well by the fans. That's how I've always looked at Ricky Medlock when it comes to him and Leonard Skinner. No, he's not an original member, but man, he fits in well. But that being said, again, Skinner is fractured. Not as badly as Warrant, not as badly as Skid Row, but still, I guess you take what you can get. But again, the funny thing is, the farewell tour, we decided that's a no-go. We're going to keep going out there. Why do you even bother anymore? Why do you bother to lie to the fans and say, oh, this is our farewell? Is Kiss lying to us? At least I think what they're doing is they're just stretching it out so long and so far. It's going to end up being a 6 or 7 year farewell tour. If they stick to it, that's fine. But again, The Who, Leonard Skinner, the two pop into my head now. Over and over and over again. Oh, here's farewell tour. Buy tickets. You'll never see us again. 2 years later, oh, we're going on a tour again. We changed our mind. We're like baseball fans who just got screwed over by the players and the owners. The minute they announce baseball's coming back, everybody goes, yay! We all have short memories. We forgive and we forget. Sometimes I'm okay with it. Sometimes I wish we weren't so gullible. Sports, rock and roll, life, any of those categories, take your pick. All right, like I said, coming up in segment 2, our review of Greta Van Fleet, Rival Sons, and the Velveteers. Also, Mike Campbell and the Dirty Knobs, their second album, will be reviewed. External Combustion. So stay tuned, kids. The Fortress of Rock will be right back. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Fortress of Rock podcast with me, the Maestro, Kevin Crane. Of course, that was segment 1, The News of the World, our tribute to Freddie Mercury and Queen, where we look back at the past week in rock and roll and all the news and all the controversies that you deserve to know about. Next up is the heart of the show, the meat and potatoes breakdown, where we are going to review all the new songs, all the new albums, all the new concert tours, the shows that I've seen personally. Stay tuned for that. Of course, we're now available on Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Stitcher, Castbox, Google, Pocket Cast, and Radio Public, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Hang out, kids. We'll be right back. We are excited here on the Fortress of Rock taping here on March the 11th, 2022, to give you a review of the opening night of the Dreams and Gold tour with Greta Van Fleet, Rival Sons, and the Velveteers. Yes, the Maestro was there. Very interesting show. Now, I have a history with the venue, the Wings Event Center, formerly known as Wings Stadium. It's a hockey arena in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I saw Soundgarden there back in the early 90s. It's low ceiling, small capacity. We're talking about 6,000 people, roughly, give or take. Floor seating, standing room only, and of course, one deck of seats. The most uncomfortable seat I have ever been in my life. I would rather sit on a bleacher at a football game in 20-degree weather than deal with the awful, abysmal seats in the Wings Event Center. Now, I'm a big guy, but I'm not a big fat guy. I run 6'2". I'm about 250. Yeah, it's on my dating profile, even though I don't look at that anymore. Any women out there that want to date a rock and roll guy, though, let me know. But it was just a trial, a tribulation, a mess every time I had to stand up. There were no padded arm guards, arm rests. They were just sheer, total exposed metal. So basically, my hips, every time I had to stand up, were chafing and rubbing against the sides. These seats were so narrow, it was pathetic. Now, luckily, where we were sitting, I didn't have to stand up through the concert, so that helped. But of course, anybody who knows how it is at a concert, if you're on the end, which we were, you've got to get up. For anybody that wants to go to the bathroom, get a beer, I get it, that's fine. But these seats were just torture. Now, that being said, the show itself, sound was pretty good. Again, low ceiling, only one lower deck with general admission, standing room only on the floor. Triple bill, first up was the Velveteers. They played for about 25 minutes. The lead singer, guitarist, left a lot to be desired. Now, behind her, they had a twin drum attack for most of their songs, which was pretty cool. You're not seeing Neil Peart out there, but these two were just banging on the drums in rhythm, in tandem. That was about the only thing about the Velveteers that was good, though. Can't say I'd recommend them. Not the worst opening act I've ever seen, but definitely not the best. We'll get to that here in just a second. But again, the twin drum backup on the 5 or 6 songs they played, pretty good, pretty interesting, cool to watch. I found myself over the years being drawn more and more to the drummers. I don't know why, but they seem to be coming into their own as band leaders. They're starting to realize they're the ones that control the beat, control the energy of the show. So again, the Velveteers proves this point. One of the two drummers, the female drummer, comes out with a snare drum, jumps out into the audience for a couple minutes and plays that. See, I love that kind of stuff. I just love it. I love when a band comes up with something not different. We've seen people go into the crowd before. I've seen Art Alexakis of Everclear do this. You guys have seen it in any and every show you've seen. But when they take that chance, when they try to take that extra step, that extra level, and engage with the audience, it is something special. It does make you feel like you're seeing something a little bit better. So I will give the Velveteers credit for that. But overall, it's not the band that I will listen to coming up this weekend. I will not dig into their catalog. I will not listen to any more of their music because they didn't engage me enough. They didn't impress me enough to make me think that there's anything they've got out there that I would really like. Now, that being said, you move on to Rival Sons, the second of the 3 acts last night. Rival Sons are my new favorite band, kids. I'm telling you. I'm sure a lot of you out there are going, how do you not know Rival Sons? How have you not listened to them? How have you not heard them? They've been around for over a decade. And I get it. I do. And they're prolific. They're actually one of those bands that tries to put out music, as I've talked about over and over again here on the Fortress. They try to put out music every 2 years or so. They try to stay active and relevant. Now, that being said, the last time they put out an album was 2019 with Feral Roots. But I'm telling you, this band has me hooked. Rival Sons are fantastic. And I have listened to them today, here the day after the concert, for about 2 or 3 hours. And I have not heard anything from them that makes me think they're anything less than the next gods of rock and roll. Yes, and I know that sounds like a very, very arrogant statement, but Rival Sons are phenomenal. The problem is, if they've been around for 10 years and I'm just discovering them right now, and they haven't hit it big like Greta Van Fleet, it makes me wonder what's wrong. Why aren't they getting to a broader audience? Jay Buchanan, the lead singer of Rival Sons, came out. Now, of course, we were in the cheap seats. but he comes out dressed like a modern day version of Robert Palmer. Take the tie away. He's in a suit. He's dressed all natty, blonde hair. I couldn't tell if I was looking at Hulk Hogan in a suit. Ric Flair maybe would be a better comparison, or Rutger Hauer from back in the 80s. For those of you who can actually Google that, younger kids, older people, you know who I'm talking about. This guy's got charisma in terms of his performance. Now, he's not one of those guys that talks a lot. He doesn't try to engage the audience. But in terms of his performance, the way he moves, the way he sings, he is phenomenal. The whole band is phenomenal. They're tight. They are fantastic. They played 8 songs warming up for Greta Van Fleet. Out of the hundreds of concerts I've seen in my life, Rival Sons is probably one of the top 5 or 6 opening bands I have ever seen. Now, when I say opening bands, I'm talking about bands that, when I saw Mammoth WVH last year, quote unquote, opening for Guns N' Roses, that doesn't count. That doesn't count. Mammoth is not an opening act. Even just starting off like they were, they're not, to me, an opening act. I'm talking about bands that you have never heard of or have barely heard of. Like when I saw Collective Soul open for Aerosmith back in the early 90s on their first tour, Collective Soul's first tour, and they kicked Aerosmith's ass. That's what I'm talking about. An up-and-coming band, a band on the rise. And again, I know Rival Sons have been around for a long time, but these guys just impress me to no end. Every song they play, Too Bad, Open My Eyes, Electric Man, Pressure and Time, which I believe this is the 10th anniversary of that album. Shooting Stars, Feral Roots, Do Your Worst, Nobody Wants to Die. Beginning to end, an unbelievable set. It was tight. It was fantastic. 40 minutes. Do yourself a favor. Check out the Rival Sons. They are fantastic. So now we move on to the main attraction of the night. Greta Van Fleet. Of course, it's opening night of this tour. There's bound to be issues, and right off the bat, we got issues. Opening song, Heat Above. The microphone for the lead singer, Josh Kiska, failed about a third of the way through the song, and they could not get it fixed. So basically, he's got to try to get the crowd to sing the entire song because his microphone shot. He can't. And I'm sorry, Heat Above is not one of my favorite Greta Van Fleet songs. So the fact that not only did they not perform it technically, but I had to listen to a bunch of teenage girls sing it right off the bat. There's problems. That's another thing I want to talk about, the crowd. I guess I was being a little naive when it came to seeing Greta Van Fleet. Now, I have a 20-year-old daughter. She is not a fan. She does not like hard rock. But at the same time, she said to me when I told her that I was going to see Greta Van Fleet, she kind of said, you like Greta Van Fleet? And of course, I look at them with the old school Zeppelin, obvious, blatant Zeppelin influences, and I'm like, why wouldn't I? I've got all the albums, I've listened to them, they're solid. But of course, young guys in their 20s. So this is a good thing and a bad thing. As I watched this whole night unfold, you do have a lot of teenage girls out there. It's almost like a Beatles, Monkees, Hanson, Backstreet Boys phenomenon where these girls are just in love with these guys. And now on the flip side, I love it because maybe that means rock and roll is not dead after all. Maybe that means that because there were a lot of young guys there too. This was a very diverse crowd, very interesting mix of young men, young women. We had a father sitting in front of us, and his daughter and her friend went down to the floor to watch most of the show. Poor guy's stuck with us, but of course, he's in our group, 40s, 50s in terms of age. There were others out there in our age group, but again, a lot of younger people. Very, very diverse group of fans. Hoping that means that Greta Van Fleet, despite what's coming here in the next couple minutes in my review, could help usher in the next gen of rock and roll. Now, that being said, I have to admit, Greta Van Fleet was underwhelming. Now, the stage setup, a lot of pyro, all that was good. I did not like the set list in terms of how they set it up. They basically put all the songs that you would want to hear at the beginning and at the very end, and there was a huge, I mean, huge gap of about an hour. They came off as self-indulgent, where you were listening to songs you, number one, didn't want to hear, and number two, they stretched out for 10 or 15 minutes almost like a acid prog rock band. Going from Caravel, Age of Machine, Light My Love, Trip the Light Fantastic, The Weight of Dreams, Watching Over, and Built by Nations. Basically songs 4 through 10 in the set. Just lost me altogether. And I'm admitting I am not the biggest fan of theirs in the world, but I did want to see them. They've got a lot of stuff I love as well. Unfortunately, like I said, front loaded, back loaded. But that hour in the middle was just torture. As I mentioned, the venue, the seats didn't help. But I look at it this way. New favorite band, Rival Sons, they were worth it. 40 minutes of them, that was worth the entire night to me. That's how I look at a show. If I can pull out something like that, a band that I have never appreciated or never really gotten exposed to before, that now I can get into, even if the headliner is mediocre. And again, Greta Van Fleet was not bad. They were competent. They were good. They were solid. I'll admit, Josh Kitska's vocals grate on me at times. It's too much. Even Robert Plant, who he's obviously emulating, dialed it down every once in a while. But getting Rival Sons out of this was worth it for me. And so, of course, we mentioned this last week. They have extended this tour into the fall. So if you want to go see them, you go check them out. it's probably worth it to see him once. You let me know, drop me a line on our Facebook page or here on Spotify and Anchor at the Fortress of Rock. All right, our album review for the week is Mike Campbell and the Dirty Knobs' second album, External Combustion. We've already kind of talked about the first two singles, Wicked Mind and Electric Gypsy, which I loved. I liked both songs a lot. Now, the album came out last Friday, and of course, Wicked Mind is the leadoff track, and Electric Gypsy is the final track. So you already know, in terms of bookending the album, you're set. You got good stuff at the beginning, good stuff at the end. Of course, the problem is the middle. And I've mentioned this when I reviewed those songs. I can't stand the fact that Mike Campbell is pushing too hard to make this basically a Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers revival, a carbon copy. He pulls in a guy who sounds just like Tom Petty in terms of vocals, but the guy has zero charisma. And if he's the guy writing the songs with the lyrics, he's got zero creativity, because this is the problem I have with External Combustion are the lyrics. These are some of the worst lyrics at times, not all the way throughout the album, but at times, some of the worst insipid lyrics. It sounds like a third grader trying to rhyme just to say, can I find the easiest song I can, or the easiest word I can to rhyme with the previous line to make this a song. Track by track, of course, number one, Wicked Mind is great. Track two, Bridget Bardot, okay. Track three, Cheap Talk, is one of the ones I'm talking about. Pathetic songwriting when it comes to lyrics. Pathetic. Now keep this in mind, though. I'm not ripping on Mike Campbell. Mike Campbell's guitar work throughout this entire album is fantastic. Song 4 is the title track, External Combustion. Again, like Bridget Bardot, okay, not great. Ian Hunter comes in for song 5 in a guest spot. Dirty Job. Pretty good. Pretty good. Then all of a sudden, everything shifts with song 6 to State of Mind, which is like a really terrible country song, featuring Margot Price on vocals. I'll never understand artists that do this. Oh, we're a rock band, but we're going to throw a country song in there. To me, it's the equivalent of the stuff we put up with in the 80s, where you would have a really hard rock band plowing through a dozen songs that were just molten lava fury awesome. And then they drop the one power ballad in there that would bring everything to a screeching halt. And I can't stand that. Stick to your guns. Be who you are. You don't have to change tempo, change everything, try to appeal to this crowd and that crowd. Be who you are. Don't be schizophrenic. So State of Mind right there destroys the album for me. Lightning Boogie is number 7. Not a big fan. Rat City, a little bit better, but still nothing great. In This Lifetime, much better given what we've just listened to over the last 3 songs. It Is Written is another terrible song when it comes to lyrics. Very bad. And then, of course, the closing track we mentioned, Electric Gypsy, which is a great song. So overall, I've got to tell you, I cannot recommend External Combustion. There are so much better albums out there, so many better bands out there to listen to. As much as I want to keep Mike Campbell out there because I love his guitar work, of course, loved him with Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, this is not worth your time. Rival Sons, people, Rival Sons. I will be pushing them for the rest of this episode and beyond. Go listen to Rival Sons. Stay away from External Combustion from Mike Campbell and the Dirty Knobs. All right, to wrap up Breakdown, this is one that would just depress me beyond belief because I thought that maybe this would be another bright and shining light in terms of something to look forward to over the next couple years. Classic rock. We talked about it last week. Frontiers Records president Serafino Perugino found this kid, Renan Zonta, from Brazil, put this super group around him, or what we would now, I guess, have to call a super group, with Billy Sheehan and Brad Gillis, Mr. Big and Night Ranger, respectively. I gave you that background last week, so now I finally have had time to listen to the song 6 or 7 times. The first single, Stop the World, off their upcoming debut album. All I can say is, Brad Gillis, please, for the love of God, don't leave Night Ranger for this. This kid is just the most generic, colorless singer with no charisma. There is nothing about him. I don't understand why the record label is fawning all over him. The president is fawning all over him. So to the point that he's got to put together this group around him. He's awful. He is subpar. There is nothing about him that stands out. Will I listen to their debut album? Will I listen to it? Skills when it comes out? Sure. I'll give it a shot. That's what we do on the Fortress of Rock. But I'm just not optimistic. If this is the best the album has to offer, Stop the World, I am not encouraged. I am not optimistic. Again, Brad Gillis, I love Night Ranger. His guitar on this song is good. It's solid. But this lead singer's just not a prodigy. He's not the be-all, end-all that they're making him out to be. Listen to Rival Sons again. Jesus. With so little great new stuff out there, I'm just going to keep pimping Rival Sons now that I have found them and have discovered them personally, of course. So unfortunately, yeah, kind of stinks. Greta Van Fleet, External Combustion, Skills, Stop the World, But again, you take what you get. Rival Sons were awesome. All right, stay tuned. Segment 3 coming up. As always, I want to go back. Couple of little tidbits and nuggets when it comes to anniversaries of classic album releases, moments in rock history, and birthdays. Stay tuned. The Fortress of Rock will return. All right, now that we've looked at the current state of music In our breakdown segment, it is time to climb into the DeLorean and travel back in time to look back at moments in rock and roll history, birthdays, deaths, anniversaries of song and album releases. It is time for I Wanna Go Back, our tribute to Eddie Money. Stay tuned. And as always, we're on Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Stitcher, Castbox, Google, Pocket Cast, and Radio Public, anywhere where you listen to your favorite podcasts. Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 30 of the Fortress of Rock, our weekly discussion of all things classic rock. I'm the Maestro Kevin Crane here on March the 11th, 2022. Segment 3, as always, is I Wanna Go Back, our tribute to Eddie Money. This segment is all about anniversaries of classic album releases, birthdays, and moments in rock history. And this is where I always like to give credit to my sources for the ideas for this show, ultimateclassicrock.com and thisdayinmusic.com. But keep in mind, while the ideas stem from their websites and their research, the opinions, the elaborations, the details are mine and mine alone. Not really a lot to talk about here, but a couple keyboard players. Yes, keyboard players. One classic, one more recent, popped up this week that I wanted to talk about. So unfortunately, the one anniversary I have here on March the 11th, going back to 2016, is Keith Emerson committed suicide and passed away on this day. Of course, Keith Emerson, founding member of Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I am not a prog rock guy. I'm going to try to tie this into last segment's review of Greta Van Fleet, because a lot of what Greta Van Fleet did when I saw them last night in concert was they were extending songs out to 15, 16 minutes. Now, they do have a keyboard player. One of the brothers, the Kiska brothers, plays keyboards, but not prevalently. It's not the same as talking about Keith Emerson, obviously, with ELP. But you get into an area with prog rock or with bands like Greta Van Fleet. You can bring Fish up. You could bring Dave Matthews up, the Grateful Dead. Prog rock to me is a lot about just jamming and extending songs out. Yes, of course, is another band that comes to mind. These 10, 15, of course, blasphemy if I bring up Rush, but they do it too. I have always said, and I've always been a staunch supporter of song structure. Now, I'm sure a lot of these bands would tell me, yeah, our 15-minute song here has structure. Inagata Vida has structure. To me, structure means you can get a song in and get your point across in 4 to 5 minutes max. And once you go beyond that, you're getting into very dangerous territory, because once you get beyond the 4 or 5 minute mark, that tells me that you're getting pretentious and you're trying to tell everybody, you better stick with this song and listen to us noodle and play drums and do the massive long guitar solos and the bass solos and the keyboard solos because, oh my God, we're going to make this sound and it's going to be textured and we're going to make you think of other worlds or wonderful environmental things. You're off on a lake, peaceful lake in the middle of nowhere with the birds and the wildlife. Stop it. Stop it. It gets to be too much. And I'll be one of the first ones and the only ones to tell you that once you get past that 5 minute mark, your structure is going to break down, and you better have a damn good reason for breaking down your song structure and stretching things out to 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 15, 20 minutes. Because I'm going to tell you what, 99% of the time, it doesn't work for somebody like me. Do I like Freebird? Yes, Freebird to me is the perfect example of a song that stretches on, what, Freebird, 7 minutes? 8 minutes? Freebird works. Fight the Good Fight works. I think Fight the Good Fight might push 6 minutes. But if you're going to have the musical interludes, the extended solos, whether it be drums, whether it be keyboards, whether it be guitar, you had better make it work, because you are not going to keep your audience's attention once you get past 5 minutes. That was a problem I had last night with Greta Van Fleet. And that's why I was never a fan of Emerson, Lake, and Palmer. I've talked about Metallica in the past. I've talked about how they dialed things down to the point where once they hit the Black Album, they realized how to keep a song tighter, more accessible, so that they get more fans and then become, as they did, an international phenomenon. So as sad as it is that Keith Emerson passed away, I literally, outside of Lucky Man, don't know a single one of their songs. Sitting here right now, recording this podcast, I cannot think of any Emerson, Lake, and Palmer songs outside of Lucky Man. I can't, because I didn't want to subject myself to that crap. Yes is another band. Long Distance Runaround and Roundabout were the only two songs of theirs I knew or cared about, and they were still too long until Trevor Rabin came in, tightened things up, and then they had Owner of a Lonely Heart, and things blew up for them for 5 years. And they became successful and popular in a more mainstream way. And I'm sure a lot of Yes fans out there look at that as a sellout. I don't. I look at it as a smart business move without losing the creative aspect. They were still creative with songs like Leave It. Owner of a Lonely Heart is still a really good song to this day. Look at Genesis. Genesis was proggy with Peter Gabriel. Phil Collins inserted himself as the leader. And then, of course, once they got to Abacab, everything blew up. Now, of course, they did at the end sell out, in my opinion. They let Phil Collins do too much of what he wanted to. But if you look at Abacab, Abacab was the perfect example of how Genesis could go from being a prog rock band to transitioning into a more accessible band without selling out. And there are long songs on Abacab, but again, not 9-10 minute songs. The title track, Abacab. Everybody gets to show off. Drums, guitar, keyboard. It's a longer song, but it is fantastic because they understood how to make things more accessible for their fans and still stick to their roots. Now, the other keyboard player, as we shift over to birthdays today on March the 11th, happy birthday to Rami Jaffee, 53 years old today. He is the current keyboard player for the Foo Fighters, former keyboard player for the Wallflowers. So he has got a depth of fantastic music behind him. And for all you current hard rock metalheads who like to listen to music that makes your ears bleed, your nose gush crimson, Vinnie Paul of Pantera, 58 years old today. I've alluded to it in the past. I'll keep talking about it on future episodes. I love hard rock. The current state of metal, though, doesn't do much for me. I hate Disturbed. I don't like Five Finger Death Punch. Sorry, too much for me. Disturbed. Oh, Jesus. Give me a break. And the thing is, my friends who I go to concerts with love these bands. And so I have to bow out now more and more often because Korn, there's another one. Oh my God. Jeez, give me a break. I'm not stuck in the 80s, kids. Like I said again, Rival Sons. Check them out immediately. But I prefer a little bit of subtlety, a little bit of musicianship in my music. And I'm not finding that a lot in these current bands, this current crop of bands who are so big, who are so popular, who are so huge. We talked about Breaking Benjamin in the first segment. They're out with Alice in Chains and Push. And unfortunately, we can't go see them. Doesn't work schedule-wise. But I would have been willing to see Breaking Benjamin only because I would love to see Bush and Alice in Chains. Otherwise, couldn't give two rats' asses about Breaking Benjamin. I'm sure that opinion pisses a lot of you off. Maybe some of you are actually in solidarity with me. So whichever way it goes, that's fine. Segment 4 coming up next. I will give you a preview of what's coming up here in the next 3 or 4 weeks. What you can expect here coming up on the Fortress of Rock. I am the Maestro. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Well, we hope you enjoyed our trip back in time, looking back at the anniversaries, the classic moments in rock and roll history. But of course, the DeLorean works both ways. So now we have to move forward. The last segment here, as always, on the Fortress of Rock with me, the Maestro Kevin Crane. Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Stitcher, Castbox, Google, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. It's all about the future. What's coming out here in the next month or two? What songs? What albums? What concert tours? That's why we call it Wrap It Up. Thanks to the fabulous Thunderbirds. Thanks to you for hanging out. Here comes our final segment. Welcome back to the Fortress of Rock with the Maestro, Kevin Crane. It's episode 30, taping on March the 11th, 2022. Of course, Wrap It Up is a tribute to the fabulous Thunderbirds and their great song from the 80s. We look forward to what we're going to talk about, what we're going to review over the next month here on the Fortress. Of course, 2 albums we have alluded to. We have reviewed multiple tracks off both these albums, so the reviews of the full albums are coming in the next few weeks. Next week, you will get my review of Tears for Fears, The Tipping Point. 2 weeks from now, you will get my review of the just released Bryan Adams album, So Happy It Hurts. I'll give you a hint. I've listened to both of them. Not enough where I can give you a full and solid review. They're both a little disappointing based on the tracks that were released here over the last 3 or 4 months, which I really liked from both. I'm not really happy with the rest of the albums, but I have to listen to them a little bit more. Give them a chance. You guys know how it is. Not every album can be one of those magical albums where you listen to it the first time and you're hooked. Sometimes an album has to grow on you. Sometimes a hook in a song has to get in and embed itself in you before you really love it. So we'll see. But those are the 2 album reviews I've got coming for you in the next couple weeks. Some of these songs we've talked about, some are new. We mentioned the Black Keys in segment 1. So the first single off of the upcoming album Dropout Boogie is Wild Child. I'll review that for you. We talked about the second single from the upcoming Red Hot Chili Peppers album, Unlimited Love, is Poster Child. We'll have that for you here probably next week. Still delving into Joe Satriani's Faceless, Jack White's Heidi Ho, and the B-side, Queen of the Bees. You want to talk about 2 songs that are completely different. This is why hit and miss, good and bad, awesome and awkward, Jack White is such a creative genius. Just listen to Heidi Ho and Queen of the Bees and think of them as a 45, one side Heidi Ho, the other side Queen of the Bees. Completely different formats, completely different styles of music. We'll talk about those here in the coming couple weeks. And then finally, Joan Jett today, we just found out, is putting out an acoustic album. So the first release from Joan Jett's upcoming acoustic album is I'm Gonna Run Away. So we will look into that for you, of course. How could we not? Here on the Fortress of Rock. So that'll do it for us here on March the 11th, 2022. Glad to have you aboard. Glad you listened. Glad you hung out with me. Much more coming in terms of concert reviews in 2 weeks. Not next week, but in 2 weeks. I will have a review of the Young Guns tour with Mammoth, WVH, and Dirty Honey. I will be there. I will tell you, I would imagine Mammoth is going to be awesome. Dirty Honey, probably going to be awesome as well. If there is one thing I have emphasized it through this whole episode you take away from what I have talked about, what I have reviewed, listen to Rival Sons, my new favorite band. They are fantastic. And again, I know a lot of you out there have already been exposed to them. You either love them or you hate them. That's fine. But if you have not, listen to Rival Sons. Oh my God, they are phenomenal. Again, my new favorite band. That's it. Enjoy your weekend. I'm going to. It's time for me to wrap this up so I can go have a fun Friday and Saturday. Next Friday night, we will check you out here on the Fortress. Stay well, kids. We love you.